everybody. So today I'm going to do my labor and delivery story for my brand new baby girl. Her name is Cassandra and she was born on Wednesday, September 24th at 2 a.m. She weighed 8 pounds, 3 ounces and was 20 inches long. And we are just absolutely thrilled that she is finally here, especially myself. So if you're unfamiliar with my channel and with me and my family, I'll just do a really quick pregnancy background. So, Zachary and I started to TTC in September of 2013. So it's been about it's been exactly a year since we started trying. We got our BFP on January 18th, 2014, and the estimated due date was September the 20th. And at my 8-week ultrasound, which was, I think, a dating ultrasound, they measured the baby and how far along I was and everything, and they changed my due date to September 23rd. So I apologize for looking down. I'm just reading my notes here. I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes at 26 weeks pregnant, and my blood sugar level was not I couldn't control it with just diet and exercise alone, so I was insulin dependent. And because of that, my doctor had informed me that if I were to make it to my due date, I would be induced on my due date. So that was kind of discouraging to me, but it is what it is. You can't help things like that. So that's exactly what happened. I was induced on my due date. So on Wednesday, September 17th, I had my last prenatal checkup with my doctor, and I was dilated to 1 centimeter. So she stretched me to 2 and did a membrane sweep and hoped that that would put me into labor over the weekend. But unfortunately, it didn't do anything. I had absolutely no signs of labor, and I wasn't progressing. I had no contractions. I had no mucus or anything. Nothing was going on. So on Monday, September 22nd, my doctor called and said that we were officially on the waiting list and we were on standby to be induced. So she said, be ready at a moment's notice to head to the hospital, which of course we already were ready because it was due date. So she called, told us to be ready, and about 25 hours later, the next day on our due date, September 23rd, we got the call from the hospital at 2 o'clock saying, come on down, we're ready for you. And so at that moment, we dropped everything, we got everything ready to go, and we headed to the hospital. We got there at about 3 o'clock, and my parents met us there because they were going to take our oldest daughter, Madison, for the night, or while we were in the hospital. So they met us there, and Zachary's mom and his brother met us at the hospital about an hour later. They were finishing up their day at work. So our family was there with us when we got to the hospital. At 3:30, I changed into my gown and we were given a labor and delivery suite. So I didn't know this at the time, but they put us in a room downstairs, which is not where I had given birth before. In my family, my sisters and I, we all have the same doctor, and for each and every child that has been born in the last 10 years, we've all had a room in kind of like the labor and delivery suite upstairs, but this time I was put downstairs, and I wasn't sure why, but I'm assuming it was because I was being induced. But anyway, so we were given our labor and delivery room downstairs at 3:30, and for about 5 hours or so, I was assessed and monitored. So the induction didn't even start until later that evening, but they wanted to just monitor baby's heart rate and to see if I was progressing on my own, which I wasn't. When I got to the hospital, they checked me. I was still only 2 centimeters dilated. I wasn't having any contractions that I was aware of, but on the monitor it did say that I was having contractions every 10 minutes, but I didn't feel them. They didn't have any pain with them at all. They just felt really tight. I thought I was picking them up to be just Braxton Hicks contractions, because that's what I have been feeling for a majority of my pregnancy. So at about 5 to 5:30, the resident doctor came in and checked me for progress just to see how we would go ahead with the induction. My doctor said that I would be induced with oxytocin, which is given through an IV. And the resident care doctor who was working at the time at the hospital, she said that it wouldn't be safe to start the IV if my cervix wasn't, effaced or anything. So she wanted to check my cervix just to make sure that it was soft enough. And if it wasn't, she was going to use some sort of cervical gel to kind of help soften it up and get it ready for labor and stuff like that. So she checked me. I was still only 2 centimeters dilated, but I was effaced. So my cervix was soft enough to go ahead and just start the IV right away, which was really a relief to me because I didn't want to wait any longer. So at about 7:45, the hospital was very busy, so we did do a lot of waiting in the beginning. So at about 7:45, the nurse came in and started the oxytocin IV. So I was first given a dose of 6 units per minute, which was like the minimum. They just wanted to get things going really slowly and then slowly up the dose of oxytocin. She also gave me some food to eat because at that point I hadn't eaten any lunch or dinner, and because I was insulin dependent, I wasn't, really eating like I was supposed to. I was on a strict meal plan, and I had to take my insulin before dinner, but I didn't do that because I knew that I'd be going into labor that night. So she gave me a little bit of food to keep my blood sugar up, and she didn't want it to get too low. At about 8 to 8:30, they also started a sugar water IV because, again, they didn't want my sugar to get too low. And around 10 p.m. is when I really started to feel contractions. So I'm assuming this is about early labor because they were very mild. They were extremely bearable. I could talk and laugh through them. At about 10:30, my doctor came in, the doctor who would be delivering the baby. She came in and checked me, and I was at 3 centimeters, so I had only progressed 1 centimeter for about 2 hours. And then she decided to break my water. So she broke my water at 10:30, and then after that, my oxytocin dose was raised to 8 units per minute. So at that point, I was just, relaxing, trying to get some rest between contractions. Again, they weren't very painful at all. I was able to talk through them, and I was very comfortable, except for the extremely uncomfortable hospital bed. So at about 12:30 a.m., the contractions started getting stronger and closer together. They were getting painful, but they were bearable. I was able to just breathe through them and concentrate, and I was a little bit vocal. I wasn't like screaming or anything, but I was just, like moaning through them, and I had music playing, and the room was dark, and it was calm, and it was just a very, very easy, calm labor. So I think at that point, about 1 a.m., they raised my oxytocin dose to 10 units per minute, and that's when things started to get bad. Like, the contractions were so painful. The nurse and doctor suggested that I get an epidural, and I was like, you know what, I don't want one. I don't want one right now. Let's see how I am in another half an hour or so, because they were getting, increasingly stronger. They were getting closer together. I was starting to doubt my ability to be able to go through the labor without the epidural. I did try the gas, but the gas just made things worse. It made the pain even more unbearable, and the gas completely dried out my mouth and my throat, and I'm still recovering from that. I still have a sore throat and like a scratchy voice from time to time, and the gas honestly just made me feel like I was on something, like I was stoned, or it just made me feel completely out of it, and I did not like it at all, and it made the contractions even worse. So if I regret anything during my labor, it is taking that gas, because it made everything so much worse. So at about, between 1 to 1:30, the contractions were getting so painful, and it came to the point where I was actually thinking about getting the epidural. So at about 1:30 or so, 1:40, the doctor came in, the resident care doctor, and she checked me. She's like, I'll check you right now, and you can decide whether or not you want an epidural, because if you're only 6 or 7, you may have another hour or two of labor. But if you're closer to 8 or 9, then, we could get things going pretty quick, and you probably won't even have time to have an epidural. So she went ahead and checked me. I was at 6 centimeters at about 1:45, and I was like, okay, I have 4 centimeters to go. That's probably another hour or two. These contractions are getting out of control. They are so unbearably painful, and they did warn me that contractions with oxytocin can be quite painful. And she's like, the nurse told me, women who are induced with oxytocin generally get an epidural. So I was like, I kind of understand why now. But at that point, it was too late, but none of us knew it. So 1:45, I was 6 centimeters dilated, and I was like, okay, let's do it. Let's get the epidural, because I can't do this anymore. It was so painful. I was actually starting to yell out loud. I wasn't uncontrollably screaming, but I was starting to get very loud, and I found it very, very hard to keep still, and I was just writhing in pain. It was so bad. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. But at that point, I felt like I couldn't do it anymore. And I'm like, usually when you feel like you can't do it anymore, you're getting close to the end. You're getting close to actually, delivering the baby. So I had a little bit of hope and thinking that maybe this is it. Maybe we're close to the end. But, a few minutes earlier, the doctor had only told me that I was only at 6 centimeters. So I was ready to get the epidural. I was ready to just let it go and get some relief from that pain, because I could not handle it anymore. So the contractions were pretty painful. They were one on top of another. And at about 10 to 2, maybe 5 to 2 in the morning, I started to feel the urge to push. So this was 5 or 10 minutes after the doctor had checked me and said that I was 6 centimeters dilated. I immediately felt the urge to push. I felt the pressure. I felt the baby moving down, and I was freaking out. I had my mom on one side. I had Zachary on the other side. And I'm like, I'm pushing right now. I can't stop this. I can't control it. I can't stop myself from pushing. This baby is coming out right now. My mom just kept saying, no, don't push. It's too early. You're only 6 centimeters dilated. And I'm like, I can't help it. I can't stop myself from pushing right now. And then a couple of contractions after that, I felt the head starting to come out. And there were no nurses or doctors in the room at this time. And I was freaking out. I'm like, you need to get the nurse in here right now. I feel the head coming out. So then my mom, she pulled up the blanket and looked, and she's like, oh my God, there's the head. The baby's coming right now. So she ran outside. I think she ran outside to grab the nurse. And the nurse came in, and she didn't believe me. She's like, oh no, you're only 6 centimeters. You have a little bit to go. So then she lifted the blanket. She's like, oh my God, the baby's coming right now. So she ran out to grab other nurses. She called my doctor. Thankfully, my doctor was already on her way down, because they told her that I wanted an epidural. So she was already on her way down, and she got there just in the nick of time, because when she arrived, literally seconds later, the baby came out. And it happened so fast. I still can't believe how fast she was born. I went from 6 centimeters to 10 centimeters in 10 minutes. I literally pushed for maybe 5 minutes. I got her out in 3 pushes, and I was able to do it all without the epidural. So I got the vaginal unmedicated delivery that I was hoping for this entire pregnancy. So I'm super proud of myself for that. I didn't think I could do it, but I did it. So she was born at 2 in the morning, and she was completely healthy. She cried right away. So I was really, really relieved. And Zachary, as soon as she was born, he called out the gender. He told everybody that it was a girl. She was a girl. And so they laid her on my chest, and I'm just laying there. I'm like, both of us are crying, and I asked Zachary to tell everybody what her name is, so he announced to everybody that her name is Cassandra. So it was just a really, really good time. I was really pleased with how everything went, and I'm really happy that I was able to have the unmedicated labor and delivery that I had wanted the entire pregnancy, because as soon as I found out I had gestational diabetes, I was like, well, that's it. I have a feeling that, the birth isn't going to go the way that I want it to, but it totally did. So I'm extremely happy with how everything went. She came out happy and healthy. I didn't need any stitches or anything, so that's kind of a miracle considering how fast she came. But yeah, that is our labor and delivery story. So yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm incredibly pleased with how everything went. And, considering the diabetes and everything that I had gone through the last 3 months of my pregnancy, I just couldn't have asked for anything better. So that's it for this video. I know it's a little bit long, but I really wanted to do this right away. I actually filmed this already once before, but the video and the audio weren't syncing. I don't know why, and I couldn't fix it, so I had to re-record it. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching my labor and delivery. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.